Hello and welcome to Hysteria. I'm Erin Ryan.
And I'm Alyssa Mastromonaco.
Alyssa, do you get songs stuck in your head?
All the time.
What's the most recent song that you have gotten stuck in your head?
Honestly, Every Rose Has Its Thorn.
Oh, no. Heat of the Moment by Asia has been in and out of my...
I love that one. I love the version that South Park does.
Yes. Every time. Honestly, every time Cartman sings on South Park, it really warms my heart.
Wait for me. I never meant to be so bad to you.
Let's get to the show. This week, we're joined by Representative Gwen Moore and Megan Gailey to tackle the following questions. What's wrong with framing the school reopening debate as a battle between parents and teachers? How will the For the People Act protect voting rights? How can we reach out to our elderly neighbors during a time that's been especially hard on them? And which one of us has a bone to pick with American Idol? All this and more right now. Okay, lots of news to get to this week. First thing I want to talk about is reopening schools has been a heated topic once again. We're about a year into this pandemic, and right now we're at a point where, the vaccine is theoretically available, but the people who need it are not necessarily getting it. Meanwhile, people who have children who are school age have been essentially trying to tutor their kids at home full time in addition to the jobs they're already supposed to be doing. It's put a ton of stress on caretakers, women in particular, and it has been really hard for kids. I've heard friends of mine who have kids who are exhibiting symptoms of depression, which is so sad to hear about. But meanwhile, there are teachers don't really want to be sent into workplaces that are not safe, where nobody is really taking precautions. And teachers' unions and parents have sort of been pitted against each other in this tug of war. Alyssa, what do you make of this parents versus teachers story? And do you think that there is a solution to it?
We've talked about this a lot. I feel so bad about the way that this is being set up as like teachers versus parents. And in some ways, I think that the states, maybe even the federal government, like they don't want to be in the line of fire. So they're like, parents are unreasonable. Teachers are being, insubordinate. And I just think that, I guess I just wonder why we can't prioritize vaccinating teachers. I mean, we need everything that we know is telling us that kids need to go back to school for a myriad of reasons. There are too many reasons to even list why kids need to go back to school. So if this is so important, that's one. Two, we also know that teachers over the past years have gotten such short shrift. I mean, Erin, we have talked about teachers who buy their own school supplies, who have gone above and beyond to take care of needy kids in their classes. And why, if I'm a teacher, why am I believing, it's like, I think that I feel a lot of empathy for the teachers to be like, wait a minute, you say everybody needs to vaccine, but we're cool. We just need mitigation steps in place. So teachers now have to police kids and tell them how to wear their masks. I mean, that's tough. Social distance. Some of the steps include making class sizes smaller. Well, the class sizes need to make smaller. Be made smaller. Sorry. Teachers don't do that. Teachers aren't make my class smaller.
Oh, you can make the class smaller and then the teachers just divide like amoeba now. So there's enough teachers to deal with each smaller class size. Where is this? Who's handling the more?
Where's the beef, man?
Here's the solution. Fewer kids. What?
Right. And the social distancing and all and so I just feel like we are getting information that seems very reasonable. Of course, social distancing, better ventilation. Okay, I don't know about you. I mean, we've also talked about this over the course of the past year. Schools have done what they've had to do right by their students. And in so many cases that involve robbing from Peter to pay Paul.
Mm-hmm.
You need iPads? Okay, well, we like zeroed out the sports budget for the next 2 years to be able to do that. And like all these chickens are going to come home to roost.
Mm-hmm.
So I just feel like there needs to be more support or more, what's the word, Erin? There needs to be a little bit more brazenness, a little bit more leadership, I think, from the states being like, and here's how we're going to get there. Because right now, it's like parents seem unreasonable and teachers seem petulant, and that's the furthest thing from the truth.
Here's something that sort of bums me out about this framing, because I know that I introduced it as parents versus teachers, but part of the reason I introduced it that way is because I find that to be bullshit. I think teachers and parents are on the same side here, which is that they want their kids back in school. I don't think I know a single teacher who likes teaching remotely compared to doing it in person. Nobody goes to college and gets an education degree, in many cases gets a master's degree or further, because they want to sit in front of a screen and teach Brady Bunch squares of Zoom kids. They want to be in classrooms. Teachers want to be in classrooms. Parents want their kids to be in classrooms. Like teachers and parents are on the same team, which is team safe schools.
Right.
You know, and like safe schools can be achieved by giving teachers priority in vaccinations. B, if there is a teacher that has a severe immunocompromised situation, or like I heard a story of a man who had a wife who was getting chemo for breast cancer, and he was nervous about going to school in person because of questions around that. I think that there should be accommodations made for teachers in exceptional circumstances. But I also think like the way that the story is being told by the news media is fucked up, and it's making things worse, because this is not a teachers union advocating for safe working environment for teachers and doing what a union is supposed to do, which is advocate for its members, is not doing anything wrong. What is being done wrong is the government that is supposed to facilitate a safe return to schools is not doing it. And like that makes me really mad. It makes me, I guess maybe not mad, just disappointed at the news media, because I think that they kind of fell for a anti-union trick. And also, here's another thing I want to get into. The CDC, head of the CDC, Dr. Rochelle Walensky, has said that schools should be able to be safely open with mitigation strategies in place. There are some teachers that are really incredulous about that. And I don't blame them, because for the last year, we have been constantly lied to. We have been told things about the pandemic. The communication strategy around the pandemic has been non-existent to terrible. And so I think that, while this isn't the Biden administration's problem, they didn't make the problem of bad communication and a backlog of mistrust. It's now something that they need to deal with before we can move forward. And Alyssa, I'm wondering how you think a communication strategy that gives the public accurate information about the pandemic, how could the Biden administration strategy be improved? Like, what would you like to see?
So I think, there are two things, right? It's around vaccines, and then around vaccinations, and then around the actual trajectory of the pandemic. And I think that, last night we saw Vice President Biden, he did a town hall, and I think that town halls are an incredibly good way to do that, because you get people's questions, not media hype questions that are like, gotcha, but like real people's questions and concerns, and then you get real answers. And I think that one thing I might think about is making sure that you have maybe only a real few messengers on this, because a slight of one word can make a difference, in stuff like this. And so I would also just go super basic. I would do a PSA, one about how to get vaccinated and one about what's happening with the pandemic. I would put it on every radio station. I would translate it into as many languages as we need. I would make sure I'm communicating with who is in touch with people who have been quarantined for so long. People are still in communication with their churches and synagogues and temples and mosques. And AARP Magazine. AARP Magazine has 38.8 million readers. That's how many people subscribe to the magazine, which makes it like the number one most read thing. So like, let's just find, they're not sexy, you know? It's not like, oh, let's figure out how to communicate with young people through TikTok. You don't need to host a clubhouse. I think you've got to go like super brass tacks and just pretend. You have to attack this in the same way I think you attack a hurricane or any other crisis where communication is limited, because I think people's bandwidths are completely just blasted, and that we just need to know, where do we get the vaccine? When can you get the vaccine? Like, do you have to get it within 21 to 28 days? What happens if you don't? I mean, I think that there's just a lot of different bits of information. And yes, it's all on websites, but the websites keep crashing because so many people want the information. So I think we just have to really just go old school.
I've never been on the side of developing a communication strategy, but I am a consumer of information. And one thing that I find deeply ineffective and annoying about a lot of government communication is that it tells you to go to a website. No.
Right.
Put the most
Give me a billboard.
Give me a billboard. Like before, when I log on to Netflix, make there be a screen that appears before I can even see the menu that has 3 bullet points of what I need to know. Here's the latest. If we're in a war, if this is a wartime type endeavor, let's use the government's ability to communicate through mass media to the extent that we can. And let's get really good at having information like make it so it's unavoidable. Not instead of something that we have to seek out. I think it would be much more effective to make it unavoidable, especially to the people that need to know it the most, which are people that are the most vulnerable, and probably people who are in caretaker roles. So, you know, parents and the elderly. So
in communities with the highest rate of COVID and the lowest rate of vaccination, which is fairly easy to figure out at the state level, send trained people door to door to give people the information. I mean, it's like, this all sounds like such a huge lift, but it's just not going to get better until we do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that members of the community who want to volunteer within the community to be disseminators of information can be really helpful, especially if members of that community are rightfully suspicious about public health measures, because you know, people of color have in the past been and in the present been mistreated by the medical community and been lied to. So it's totally reasonable that there are people that would, you know, like in California, you know, we were sterilizing Latina prisoners without them knowing, you know, like that's unbelievably fucked. And it makes perfect sense that members of that community would be suspicious or not quite. So I think it's important that, you know, in addition to having the like, this is what you need to know, this is the official communication, I think that your point about community advocates talking to members of their own community is something that is really important. Because I don't think that we're going to get through this unless we all get to a point where we trust public health information again.
Right. And imagine, Erin, if you are an older person, if you are in a vulnerable population, but say every Sunday you're still tuning into your church Zoom. And at the end of the sermon or whatever it is people do at church, a member of the community came on and said, I'm a vaccinator. We're going to be here at this church Monday, Tuesday. Please come between 9 and 5. Here's the information you need to bring. Like, I just think that it's like, and then it spreads like wildfire. You know, maybe you tape it. Maybe you email that message out to everybody. Maybe you have it on the front doors of the church. I just think that it needs to get really, really old school. Otherwise, you know, it's like, and it's not fair. The Biden administration essentially inherited spoiled milk, which they have to unspoil. And so like, but that's why I think that it's making communication any fancier or more complicated is just going to repel people who already are like, I logged in 5 times. I didn't get an appointment. I'm sure I'll figure it out at some point, instead of making it easy for them and to feel comfortable to go get it.
Yeah. And, I was just thinking about how like a World War II era communication strategy, and I'm not suggesting like propaganda, but like I was just thinking about like Looney Tunes from World War II and how awesome they
Yeah.
were, and how I wish that maybe there could be like a SpongeBob versus like a COVID cartoon so kids could maybe understand it. I don't know. Actually, like people in their 20s watch SpongeBob, so maybe not that. But you know what I'm saying? Like
Yes.
public health awareness communication that is like there's a lot of subtlety in communicating scientific information. I think that's like undeniable. And there's all these qualifying words like mostly, inconclusively, correlated,
Right.
and that's not an easy thing to communicate with people. So I just think making it as clear as it possibly can be, and reestablishing a pattern of honesty is really important. But I was reading this week that there's something like only 1/3 of nursing home employees have gotten the vaccine that's been offered to them, and my first reaction to it was like, man, fuck this. This fucking
Right.
sucks. But my second thought was like, no, actually, I shouldn't be mad at these low wage employees. This is a failure of information and communication. So like fix, like that's not, it's not on people to like, it is on the government to help fix this.
We do. And it's like, I mean, think about it. Some vaccines have taken 10, 20 years. And we're telling everyone it's cool. 9 months, not a problem.
Mhm.
Like there is a threshold you have to get people across. And I don't think they're wrong to want just like a little bit more assurance that this is not, especially when the vaccine was developed under a president who did suggest ingesting bleach. And so
Exactly. And, I think another thing that's important for people to understand is like the only thing that Trump did to aid vaccine development is to be like, yeah, we'll prepay for those. He didn't like interfere. He wasn't the one doing the research. He was like, he didn't even have a distribution strategy. All he did was like apparently just redirect some money, which
yeah, that's it.
That's literally it. So he didn't like taint the vaccines by being an idiot. Okay, so the only thing that needs to happen in order for schools to open is for the government to undo a deficit of mistrust. That's all.
It's going to be so easy.
It's super easy, but it seems to be a high priority for the Biden administration. Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, has been out talking about how it's really important for them to get kids back in school 5 days a week. And you know what? I believe them. I believe that it's important to them, and I believe that they can do it.
Same.
And I'm rooting for them. So do we have any toast or roast today, Alyssa?
We have a toast, right?
We do have a toast. Do you want to do the toast?
No, you do the toast.
I want to toast a very special member of the U.S. House of Representatives, Delegate Stacey Plaskett. She's a delegate from the U.S. Virgin Islands, and she absolutely crushed it as impeachment manager. She's a former prosecutor from the Bronx, and she was actually a student of Jamie Raskin, who is the head of the House impeachment team. And listening to him talk about how proud he was of her is really heartwarming. Plaskett was super straightforward, forceful, brilliant, and really, even though Democrats were not able to convict Donald Trump because, he could shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue and the Senate would not vote to convict him, unless, to steal a joke from, I believe, Al Franken, unless that person was Ted Cruz, then maybe the Senate. But, she was so impressive. And I think this was the first time that a lot of people got to see her in action. And I just loved watching her to pieces. I thought she was just so, we got to get her on the show.
No woman ever should wear a pussy bow again because she's ruined it for everyone, because no one will ever look as good as she did. I mean, there is also just such a, like, I don't even know. I felt she was just fierce. The way she walked, and she didn't stop. The Republicans couldn't stop her when they tried to ask stupid ass questions, our fucking fearless jury. She was just like, no. And I mean, she was just so, she was like really inspiring.
She's also, she used to be a Republican. She was a Republican. Yes. She worked under George W. Bush, and she became a Democrat in 2008. So she went from 0 to 100 miles an hour in terms of her political journey. She's just really, and you're right. It's not the point, but
it's not the point.
Her fashion was amazing.
It was amazing.
Just iconic. I loved her cape on the first day.
Oh, it was so good.
Yeah, she's just like a perfect example of like why, how a person can be fashionable and incredibly stylish and still professional and tough. And like, I don't think there was a single person.
Not mutually exclusive.
Not mutually exclusive at all. And I think that it's time to put an end to people saying that women caring about fashion somehow makes them less serious.
We'll just put a pussy bow on that conversation.
Yeah, put a pussy bow on it, like Delegate Stacey Plaskett. So a toast to Stacey Plaskett, who rocketed to public consciousness last week if people didn't know about her before. And I'm sure we're going to be seeing a lot of great stuff from her in the future. Okay, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, Congresswoman Moore. And welcome back. We are delighted to welcome to the show for the second time, Representative Gwen Moore. Moore represents the 4th District of Wisconsin and has served in the House since 2004. That's quite some time. Please welcome back to the show, Congresswoman Moore.
Well, thank you for having me. And it's always better the second time around. It's like that second helping.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm real glad to be here with you. And of course, I'm sure we won't find anything interesting to talk about during these times.
Yeah, it's been a pretty slow news year, right? Nothing really going on. Well, let's get into some of the many things that are going on. Republican state legislators across the country have introduced 106 bills to restrict voting rights, which is 3 times the number of bills to restrict voting rights access as compared to this time last year. So they're really kicking it up a notch. Can you tell us a bit about what's going on, who state legislators are targeting with these laws, and why?
Well, yeah, they introduced 106 bills since the election where they want to suppress the votes, as you know, of people who vote in places like Philadelphia, Detroit, Milwaukee, Atlanta, kind of get my drift. And to make it more difficult for elderly, for students, for low-income people who move frequently, may not have the right kind of voter identification. But I just don't want your listeners to think that this 106 bills that they've introduced is something new. It's part of what they have been trying to do. Republicans realize that the majority of the population does not go for their policies, their programs. Donald Trump lost the popular vote by, 5 million votes, lost this time by even more, 8 million votes. We had George W. Bush lose the popular vote. And so they have, in earnest, tried ways to enact these voter suppression laws, quite frankly. And it's just something that they've done since Reconstruction. Now, the one thing that's sort of stopped them from doing this was the Voting Rights Act. The Voting Rights Act and legislation that was suspended, revoked in Eric Holder versus Shelby County. And that's where the former Attorney General under Obama lost a lawsuit. And I remind him of that he lost that, where they had pre-clearance provisions to stop some of the voter suppression in places that were known for, moving polling sites at the last minute, putting only one poll site in an area where people have to travel miles and miles to get to it. This time they want to stop in-mail voting now that Black people have discovered this as an alternative to in-person voting. And when they did that with Eric Holder versus Shelby County, they really suspended the pre-clearance rules for places like Shelby County, Alabama, and immediately they put in legislation to make it more difficult for African Americans, quite frankly, to vote. This is the story of the African American experience in America. It's an ongoing saga. So that when you see the John Lewises of the world die, you have to stop grieving pretty quickly, because it's your turn at this point to step in the line in his absence to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Congresswoman, Wisconsin's state government is mostly run by a Republican minority that seems determined to obstruct at every turn. How do Democrats work around these people?
Well, I'll tell you, Emma, it's very difficult. When I just want to get off the subject of voting for a second, just to set the table for these kind of Republicans. These are people who are fighting the mask mandate in the state. I mean, they are vigorously fighting that. And then when told that it would cost them $49 million in food stamps, SNAP funds, they're trying to figure out a way around that so that they can keep the money and still lose it. These are radical thinkers. And so, this whole notion that you're going to work with them and reason with them is very, very difficult. They're in the majority, and they know that their lives as Republicans are very, very limited. I mean, I just want to get away from voting for a second just to show you what other things. People are sanctioning members of Congress who voted to impeach Donald Trump or to convict him. This is a cult of personality. So I think two-party government is really important. We're warned by our founding fathers not to have just one party. But right now, we don't have an opposition party. We have seditionists, insurrectionists. I don't know quite what to call them. And so what we're doing, for example, in Congress to go through budget reconciliation rules to kind of plow through working within our own party to get something done for COVID relief is where we have to go. And I do think that getting H.R. 1, it shows you our priority is House Resolution 1, getting that bill through is one of the highest priorities because, without the right to have a democracy and to be able to vote and include everybody else, it just sort of, it kind of goes downhill from there in terms of being able to enact any other thing. And so Republicans realize that uncommitted voters, young voters, we have now come to a point where millennials and Gen Xers, they outnumber us baby boomers. So they now have the power and they're much more likely to be, the younger you are, the much more likely you are to not be white, to be of some mixed heritage. So that really puts the folks in charge at some risk of letting them vote because no telling what somebody of color is going to do. They might not vote for Lindsey Graham or Mitch McConnell. And so the only way that we can get around that is to put in these onerous voting requirements. And, I have had people say, well, what's wrong with requiring a voter ID, a driver's license? It's a hassle. I'm somebody right now who needs to update my driver's license. I mean, you got to have transportation to get there. You got to have time to stand in line. You got to have so many supporting documents. And now with the real IDs, the birth certificates, and maybe a social security card. But having all those things should not stop you from having a constitutional right to vote. It's easier to get a fishing license than it is to get an ability to register to vote. And the more layers you put on top of things, requiring things, the less likely you're going to have someone who just does not have the time or capacity to do all that just to vote. Their polling site might be right at the corner, but they've got 6 or 7 hours of, writing down to Mississippi and sending their $20 in to get their birth certificate, if the birth certificate is there, and so on. I know that, my eldest son had to go through a lot of trouble because he didn't have a birth certificate. We had to get an attorney to get him a birth certificate. That's a lot of effort just to have the right to vote.
Mm-hmm. So, it sounds like for a long time it's been people vote, more people vote. It endangers Republican power. Republicans freak out and try to make it harder to vote. And that goes on and on and on. But what are the long-term consequences right now if we do not protect at the federal level voting rights?
Well, everything is at risk. Our democracy really relies on the people having the right to vote. This last election, when you add Donald Trump and Joe Biden and whatever third party votes there were, what are we talking here? 150 plus million votes? These are people's voices. And it seems to me, as disappointed as we might be about the outcomes of some of these races, these people surgically, they chose to have a unified government. They chose a Democratic president. They chose those two senators in Georgia. And it was miraculous to me how in places that they sustained the vote of Republicans, like here in our state, they voted against Donald Trump, but they maintained all the other Republican elected officials. So this was deliberate. They wanted to get rid of Donald Trump, and people like Susan Collins got another term. People made those choices, and that's a healthy democracy. Taking away people's rights to vote really subvert that. People in Georgia, you can hardly blame people for turning out those two senators when their party, and when they had a chance to vote to give people COVID relief, they voted no. Two wealthy people, two individuals extremely wealthy who couldn't see the pain and misery of urban people in Georgia, rural people in Georgia, Black, white, Hispanic, otherwise, couldn't identify with their misery during Christmas, during Hanukkah, during Kwanzaa, winter solstice, nothing. Wintertime, facing eviction, hunger, food insecurity, couldn't see that. Mm-hmm. And the people spoke up. So that's what's at risk. So when I look at H.R. 1, if you excuse me here, I've got some of the provisions that are in here. The key provisions of the bill, that it would really return us to the pre-clearance provisions. And really, those states like Louisiana, Mississippi, New York, believe it or not, North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, and Virginia would continue to have to get pre-clearance. And it would also give a look back so that places like Wisconsin, for example, who had put in these onerous voter restrictions might be included in pre-clearance provisions called a federal bail-in. Greater transparency of states to ensure that voters have information next to late-breaking changes in polling sites, procedures. It would require a nationwide practice-based pre-clearance of known discriminatory practices, including the creation of at-large districts, cuts to multilingual voting materials, for example. H.R. 1 just focuses on giving people greater access to the ballot box, automatic voter registration across the country, people who've completed their felony sentences to have their voting rights restored. And as a matter of fact, on that point, there have been studies that indicate that there is lower recidivism when you restore people's voting rights, because suddenly these people become stakeholders in their democracy. It would provide security, support for voting system accuracy, paper ballots, for states to upgrade their equipment. All of our elections are run at the county and local level. So the ability of a county to have accurate and the updated voter equipment is lagging. So there would be grants programs to do that. So H.R. 1, there's nothing threatening about it except the threat that there's going to be a light shown on discriminatory practices that people are going to have to account for.
Mm-hmm. So pivoting a bit to COVID, Wisconsin's vaccine rollout speed has moved up in the national ranking with 7.4% of its population vaccinated, which is great. Because COVID has disproportionately affected communities of color, I'm wondering what state officials can do to ensure that the distribution is made swiftly but also equitably. And what are some lessons that other states can take from Wisconsin, and what could Wisconsin be doing better?
Well, I am very happy that we have a Democratic administration simply because Republicans have continued to not take the virus as seriously as they should. I mean, this fight over whether to wear masks or not wear masks is emblematic of their denial that it's a problem. I can tell you that I had a virtual meeting with our Secretary of Health and Human Services in the state of Wisconsin, and she says that there has been an immediate change, a noticeable change in the distribution of the vaccine since President Biden took office in just this short period of time, that there's greater certainty around when the vaccines are going to come. And so we appreciate that. But what I did raise to her attention, and she hadn't thought about it, is how you're prioritizing rolling the vaccine out. And maybe it'll be moot because the vaccine will come so quickly that everybody will be getting it at the same time. But unless and until that happens, I told her there are things to consider. I guess in statistics, they would call it the mode. If you start rolling things out right now, we're vaccinating 65-year-old age group. That's great. But if you continue to roll that vaccine out by age group, we most assuredly will vaccinate just about every white person before we get to people of color. The common age for white folk in America is 58, because the big baby boom that occurred after World War II was white people having children. I mean, and like in my group, we're the boomers. We're much more likely to be old. And there are many more white boomers than there are other people. The most common age for somebody Hispanic is 11. So when you think about it in terms of statistics, not averaging the ages, not coming up with the median age, but what's the most common age for somebody that's Hispanic in this country? Age 11. For African Americans, that would be 27. So if you start going by age, the likelihood that somebody's going to be 58, they're much more likely to be white. So I just think that it's really important to use a different kind of overlay. Plus, you might find in a case like in Wisconsin, counties that are practically all white and old, and therefore, you're not doing it in inner city. I think it's wonderful that they've thought about occupations. I'm scratching my head figuring out how teachers are going to be safe if they're not prioritized, because they are adults that have other interactions, and they say the children can't affect them, but they can infect each other. Teachers are precious, and I would love to see that cohort be stood up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we agree. We're big teacher fans here. My mom's actually a public school educator in Wisconsin. So yeah, it's something that's a topic of conversation between us quite a bit. So wrapping this up on a high note, we have a segment on our show called Sanity Corner, where we share something that we're doing to keep us sane. And since it's Black History Month, we've been talking about the work of Black artists, performers, writers, and creators that have brought us joy. So are there any Black creators whose work has been bringing you particular joy lately?
Well, I just bought for Christmas holidays some books by Paul Robeson, Paul Laurence Dunbar, Langston Hughes. These are just favorite poets, and I'm sorting and going through books now because I got too many of them. They're overrunning my house, but I just cannot get rid of any of these Black poets that really feed the soul. They tell you about your past and about your future too. I am, like I said, trying to stay sane. I've got too many knickknacks. I've been all over the world, and the knickknacks are driving me nuts. So I bought some bubble wrap, and I'm going to either share or something, some of these things that I have.
Have you ever thought of having like a knick-knack library where people can check out a knick-knack? Like remember how Netflix used to send you like the DVDs in the little envelope? You could just send someone a knick-knack for like a couple days and then they have it in their house and then they send it back.
Well, I do worse than that. If someone comes over and admires it, I usually are forced to take it home.
Do you have a favorite?
Like I said, I have a lot of knickknacks. And I have, African women statues and African men to go with the African women and, nativity scenes, Nigerian ones and Hispanic nativity scenes and too much.
Well, you know what? I kept my Christmas tree up until right before the inauguration. And I think Alyssa kept her Christmas decorations up too. So
I did too, but it was because I was lazy. I was just lazy, y'all. I just was lazy. Actually, my son was in the hospital with COVID. Oh, no. And I wanted to keep the Christmas tree up until he came home. He came home the day of the inauguration, January 20th. So I think I took it down a couple of days before then. I think I got not so sentimental about it because it was just getting a little dusty and crowded in here.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad he's home. That is what a nice thing to be welcomed home by. That's so
he
nice.
Came home on Inauguration Day. So I didn't go to the inauguration. I enjoyed it so much. I wasn't cold. I wasn't freezing. I wasn't, in the perimeter trying to figure out how to get over the big gates and, razor fencing. It was wonderful.
Well, Representative Gwen Moore, thank you so much for joining us. It's always a delight to talk to you, and take care.
Thank you.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Yes, Happy New Year. Hysteria is brought to you by Talkspace. This pandemic has really challenged everyone's mental health. Some of us are juggling childcare while working full-time in our homes. Some of us are fighting with our partners more than usual. And on top of that, many of us are encountering unexpected job changes and challenges. It's all a lot to handle under normal circumstances, but it's especially grueling during a pandemic. All of this leads to a crushing amount of stress, which is why I'm grateful that I have my Talkspace therapist who lets me vent anytime I want. One thing that I've learned during the pandemic is that when it comes to problems, it is way more effective to talk them through with a disinterested third party. My friends are always going to take my side when I tell them about things that are frustrating me. And sometimes I just want somebody to hear me and to give it to me straight, even if it's not always the way that a friend would. Talkspace therapists give you the support you need to feel your best. Talkspace has thousands of licensed therapists trained in over 40 specialties, including anxiety, depression, relationships, and more. Your therapist can help you set and achieve your goals. I think you'll be amazed at how much progress you can make each week that you attend therapy. Talkspace is a fraction of the cost of in-person therapy. Instead of waiting for an appointment, you can send unlimited messages to your therapist 24/7, and they'll engage with you daily, 5 days a week. My therapist gave me practical guidance that really changed my life for the better. I'm so glad that I found Talkspace and that I got the support that I need, and you can too. As a listener of this podcast, you'll get $100 off your first month with Talkspace. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com or download the app. Make sure to use the code Hysteria to get $100 off your first month and show your support for the show. That's Hysteria and Talkspace.com. Hysteria is brought to you by Quip. When do you like to chew gum? My answer to that question is often. I really like chewing gum. It makes my breath feel fresher. It gives me a little taste of something sweet, and it also keeps me from snacking all day, which is what I would absolutely do if snacks are available. If there is a snack around, I will snack on it. It's only a few short years ago that Quip reinvented the toothbrush for the modern age. They've done it again this time for chewing gum. Well, they've launched a new gum that's actually good for your oral health and comes with a dispenser that'll remind you of the one-click candy you loved as a kid. Yeah, it kind of looks like a Pez dispenser from space. It's really cool looking. Quip gum can help prevent cavities and freshen your breath when chewed for 20 minutes after eating. It's sugar-free, has tooth-friendly xylitol with 0 calories. And to satisfy your taste buds, Quip added a long-lasting mint flavor, crunchy tri-layer design, and stamped it all with the classic Quip tongue. The slim, travel-ready dispenser, available in 5 colors, metal or plastic, packs and protects up to 10 gum pieces at a time and fits in just about any purse or pocket for on the go. Oh man, my purses all have just so many like gum crumbs in them, and it is good to have a dispenser that will prevent that from happening. It's not a substitute for brushing and flossing, but it is a great support for your oral health. Pair it with a Quip electric toothbrush for adults and kids, refillable floss, and more great products. In addition to gum packs, Quip also delivers fresh brush heads, floss, and toothpaste refills every 3 months for $5. Shipping is free, so you can save money and skip the misery of in-store shopping. Spread good oral health habits this season and join the over 5 million mouths already using Quip. Get chewing for less than $2 per gum pack. And if you go to getquip.com/hysteria right now, you can get a free plastic dispenser with any refill plan. That's a free dispenser at getquip.com/hysteria, spelled GETQUIP.com/hysteria. Quip, the good habits company. This episode of Hysteria is brought to you by Four Sigmatic, a functional food company that is well known for its incredibly delicious mushroom coffee, and they are having an incredible winter sale happening right now. I've been starting my day with their mushroom ground coffee. This smooth, dark, crash-free coffee helps support my immune system with every cup. It has organic, fair trade, single origin Arabica coffee beans, ground and ready to brew in whatever method makes you happy. Not only is it so smooth, but mushroom coffee is also easy on my gut and doesn't leave me with an awful midday crash. All Four Sigmatic's nutrient-dense, elevated essentials are organic and rigorously lab-tested. I think you'll love them as much as I do. Not only does Four Sigmatic always have a 100% money-back guarantee, but right now you can try their amazing products for up to 50% off. I'm definitely stocking up on mushroom coffee. On top of up to 50% off, we've worked out an exclusive additional 10% off all sale products, but this is just for Hysteria listeners. To claim this deal, you must go to foursigmatic.com/hysteria. Hurry, this sale ends on the 23rd, so stock up on the smooth, crash-free coffee right away. And welcome back. It's a special day every day, I think, on Hysteria, but today is an extra special day. It is the actual birthday of our third member of the discussion, Megan Gailey. Happy birthday.
Hi. Thank you. This is the first birthday in my life where I will get to celebrate Michael Jordan's birthday as well, because I'm not mad at him anymore. I've let it go. So my birthday twin is in my heart now.
First of all, that's a great birthday twin.
Mm-hmm.
Second of all, what caused you to no longer be mad at him?
The Last Dance. I mean, everyone was always like, he's mean. And, he would always beat the Pacers. So it was like, he beats the Pacers, he's mean. And then when I watched The Last Dance, I was like, he's mean, like I'm mean. Like it's like fun mean. It's not, I wouldn't throw a basketball at someone's head or punch my teammate, but I troll people in my life. So I feel a kindred spirit with him.
Oh, MG and MJ sharing a birthday. Alyssa, your birthday is coming up on Monday, too. This is a birthday-tacular week for the Hysteria family.
It is. It's a big week. It's me, George Washington on the 22nd, Drew Barrymore.
Wow.
It's a big day. It's a big day.
February is a beautiful month to be born in.
But Megan, both of us probably growing up never had a birthday in school.
I, growing up, thought I would tell people President's Day was off actually for my birthday. So if we didn't have it, I was like, you're welcome. But now that there's so much snow, I'm like, this is what always happened on my birthday. There would always,
Same.
I would have something scheduled and then there would be 12 inches of snow that fell and then it would not be scheduled anymore. So
And you wouldn't be able to go to the roller rink and slow skate to, I don't know, what never had a dream come true. I don't know if that was after your time or not.
Or maybe Next Too Close.
Oh,
I loved
yeah.
that one.
Yep. Little kids love to roller skate to lyrics they couldn't
Corny
possibly
songs.
understand.
I was going to say mine was every rose has its thorn.
Oh, wow. My prom song was November Rain, and I graduated from high school in the early 2000s. Yeah, it was
And not in November.
not in November. Yeah, prom happened in May or April. And that was a very old song at the time. Let's talk more about birthdays, though. Megan, have you ever gotten like a super memorable birthday gift, either good or bad?
My husband is so good at gifts. Like he just kills it every single time that everything he gives me. I mean, this year he commissioned an artwork of Daisy Duck painted as the Queen of England. And it has my dog in the background. Like his brother painted it. Like he just finds a way to nail what I want perfectly. I didn't know that I wanted that, and then I saw it, and I was like, "Wow, that came from my brain."
That's amazing. So where are you hanging it?
That's the really tricky part. We don't know yet. I don't know. I'll send you guys a picture. It's so funny. She's got a little joint in her hand. It's the best.
Oh my God. I love it. And, every time I see a Daisy Duck iconography anywhere, I'm like, Megan Gailey. I feel like you guys are like cartoon kindred spirits.
Thank you. We are. I love that.
Alyssa, I want to hear about a memorable birthday. Do you have a story about that?
Memorable birthday. I would say that when I turned 30, I had just started working for Barack Obama. And it was kind of like not a great year. My boyfriend and I of many, many years had broken up. And everyone felt so sad for me that this had happened, that they all got together and threw the shout out to Stephanie Cutter. They threw this, and Favreau was there too. Oh my God. And Tommy. She threw a birthday party at her house where she cooked all the food, and it was very fancy. And of course, my ex-boyfriend, who I had been with for so long, had to be involved. Marvin had to be involved. And so he got pictures from my mother that they blew up of me from when I was very young. And it was very cute, but mostly I had gotten very skinny for this Nanette Lepore top. And the only pictures of me in it, it was so cute. It was lavender, kimono, and I got super thin for it. And the only pictures are of me with a cigarette hanging out of my mouth. So it's kind of sad. I look at those pictures. There is literally the best picture of me maybe ever taken was that night. And there's just a waft of smoke across my face.
That sounds cool, though.
Yeah, it's cool. It's not
awesome.
it's just for me. Just for me.
You should get a portrait commissioned based off that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you guys, I look like I'd been taking those hair vitamins you take, Erin. My hair was so lush and brown, and I had a swoop across my head. It was like I was living my Sex in the City. It was Carrie Bradshaw, and I was just ready to go in my little jeans and my purple kimono top.
They need to get that picture out to young women and be like, this is 30. It's fun. You're going to look hot at 30.
It was 30 was a great year. It definitely was.
I feel like your 20s are mostly feeling bad about not being more on top of things. And then when you get to your 30s, you start talking to other people who are in their 30s and you're like, wait, the 20s were kind of bullshit, weren't they? Yeah, they were bullshit for me too. And it's nobody talks about how kind of bullshit, and that's okay. It's okay if your 20s weren't bullshit, but it's also super okay if they were.
But see, that's the thing though. And then you get to your 40s and you're like, your 30s are bullshit. You're like, what the fuck? I'm free to be. I honestly can't wait for 50. I may have no fucks left.
Wow.
Oh man, fuck supply dwindling.
Some of the 20s pressure is there's so many older people being like, oh, that's the best time of your life, right? Isn't that the best time of your life? Oh, God, I wish. And so then you're like, oh, I guess this is the best time of my life, even if you don't feel it.
Yeah. And gosh, this actually segues perfectly into what we're going to get into. This is a topic that doesn't have anything to do with the fact that it's Megan Gailey's birthday. So we're not calling Megan old. But, I've known Megan for almost 3 years now, since we started putting this show together. And one of the first things I learned about you was that you love old people. You just love them to bits. I know that independently about you, Alyssa, and I know that about me also. And, I was thinking about birthday parties and getting together with people, and how last night I kind of reached a point where Biden said something about things getting back to normal by Christmas. Alyssa texted me and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I just was thinking, if it's hard enough living in the pandemic just as a normal, young, able-bodied person, but the people that I think are really getting a raw deal are people that are very old and in nursing homes. Because I think right now we're dealing with a time where they've always been isolated, and there's always been, it's been tough for them to feel like happy and appreciated. But now we're living in a time where it's worse than ever. So, Megan, I want to talk to you about like what are some of the things that you love about old people that you've had in your life, and have you had a chance during the pandemic to connect with elderly people, family members, and friends?
Oh my gosh, this is my favorite birthday present of all. I've always really connected with older people, and my grandmother was obviously someone very, very special to me. And so after I helped care for her, I went to work in a retirement community because I was like, I just want to be around them all the time. And I had so much fun there. I mean, there's so much joy and love and laughter. And I think sometimes, nursing homes, retirement communities get such a bad rap, but there's actual life happening there. There's romance. There's people learning things, languages. We had a group of women becoming sommeliers. Like you don't go there to die. You go there to continue living. And even the crotchety old people, I love. Like, there's just so many different stereotypes, and you can meet a crotchety old person, and when they give you a smile, it warms you in a way that no one else's smile can. At the beginning of the pandemic, I was calling and checking on like 6 to 10 old people above 70 that were very vulnerable in the East Hollywood community, and then so I would call them, find out what kind of food they needed, talk to them. And I got so many God bless yous and I love you and thank you. They're just so appreciative. And then this Sunday, I'm actually going to visit a 92-year-old family friend who is staying in California. And we text, and she was like one of the first female state reps in Indiana, just like a badass, cool woman that used to be a Republican and now isn't anymore. And that's an evolution of an old person, like she did not become radicalized until her late 80s. And so that really is a testament of like growth. It continues to happen. You don't want to throw people away and lock them behind a door. They're evolving people still.
Mm-hmm. Alyssa, what are your thoughts and what are your experiences with the elderly?
The elderly. Well, I mean, I think that for me, like my Oma and my Opa, but especially my Oma, because she was around much longer. I mean, they were just like, I feel like they're the people that teach you. They're like the leaders of the Zero Fucks Brigade. You know what I mean? Like my Oma, I have this fur coat of hers. Nobody tweeted me.
Yeah.
It's been her coat. It was her coat since 1960. And it's like when you hear the stories of things, it really just like, I feel like they have always made me appreciate things very much. So this fur coat, after my Opa dies, she never got her driver's license. So she's going to the food town in Whiting, New Jersey, and she gets on the bus and she has her fur jacket on. And this young person assaults her. This woman fled Nazis, okay? And this young woman is like, do you know how many animals died for that? No. Was she wrong? No. However, Omi just looked at her and she was like, Dumatstu, which means like you're stupid. Dumatstu. These animals would have been dead for 40 years now. Go sit down. And it was just like, and to her back then it was a different time. Like there was no North Face jackets back then. Like that is legitimately how you stayed warm. And so I feel like that for her, she was always the one who, even when I was little and I was like, I think they don't like me at school. Who cares? Who cares? Who are they? And like when we would go we used to go feed the ducks, and there was this little girl there once. I remember this clear as day. And she and the girl wanted to talk to me, and I was like not having it. And Oma just looked at me like the surly German that she was, and she's like, "Who do you think you are? You think you're better than her? You're not better than anybody, and don't you ever forget it." Now it's a tough lesson for a 4-year-old, but I just think that it's like. And where I live up here in Columbia County now, I mean, I'm not surrounded by super young people. And I think I just learn from every single one. And my older friends are the most adventurous of everybody, like hands down. Like, why don't we try it? What have you got to lose? Let's do it. So I think it's very, I think there's just, they're like walking encyclopedias of conscience and morality too.
It's interesting because like if you talk to, I feel like a lot of people, like culturally, I'm not talking about you guys. I think culturally people love to celebrate old people like Betty White, protect Betty White at all costs. Like every time she's trending, people are like, oh no, Betty White. People love a 99-year-old lady. But in practice, that's not really something that people don't really, and I'm not pointing fingers, but I think that people don't necessarily connect with elderly people on a day-to-day basis. I was looking up some stats about this, and there's 1.3 million people in nursing homes currently. And a lot of that seems to be because, like most things in America, we did not plan at all. And now this is the system that we've sort of fallen into. Why do you think that there's a disparity between people loving old people at a distance and people actually in practice trying to promote a society that actually values them and incorporates them as vital members?
I think in a lot of ways, seeing old, like being with them, it really reminds us that we are going to be old someday. And so our own fear of that just makes us put up a wall of like, I don't want to go there. It smells weird. I don't want to be a part. And it's like, it doesn't. And like, that is going to happen. My grandma would always say like, getting old is not for the weak. Like it is tough. And if you make it there, you are a survivor, truly. But it's our own fear of our mortality. And I think this year has challenged that fear more than any year in the past.
Yeah, I worked at a nursing home when I was in high school, and there was a guy that always had really funny T-shirts. Like he was the funny T-shirts guy, and he had one that said, "My plan is to live forever. So far, so good." He was like 95, I think, the last time that I worked there. So, but it was like, I think that Megan, you're hitting on something here that we are like very avoidant when it comes to like aging and death, and being avoidant doesn't prevent those things from happening. It just prevents us from being ready when they do happen. Alyssa, I was wondering what your thoughts are on, one thing that I also found as I was researching for this is that elderly care costs $250,000 a year. And that's with people earning minimum wage. Like people who work to care for old people are not making very much money at all. Alyssa, what do you think? Do you think that there are policy solutions or political solutions to making elder care more affordable and making elderly people feel like more of a part of the community and less kind of institutionalized and kept away?
It's funny because in New York, there's been a lot of controversy in New York about the undercounting of deaths, of COVID deaths in nursing homes during the pandemic. And as they've gone, it's like the local news especially has gone into some of these nursing home communities where some of this was reported. It's like you just see these were not posh nursing homes. These were not the fancy pants ones. This was like the one that I busted my Oma out of. Like the first one that she went to was like, it's like, I can't even think about it. It makes me so sad. And it's like, you just can't imagine that people have contributed so much to society. And like, this is where they go. And you have to assume that if we can figure out public colleges and universities, we should be able to figure out better elder care for the, like we say, the greatest generation. And then, and it's like, because it is all basically, how much Medicare do they take? How much do they take veterans benefits? How Social Security? Like there are so many different ways. I remember when my Oma, she couldn't even keep up with how you fill out the paperwork. I mean, when you think about it, if you don't have someone who is taking care of the person in the nursing home, like even just legally, it's beyond complicated. And I don't know what the policy solutions are. I feel like this is something I should actually research. I feel like Bernie Sanders may have something to say on the matter. But I do think that it is that the people who can save as much as they save, you know, to think that they're going to have like a nice life, and then you've saved all this money and the nursing home you can afford is like a prison, you know. I mean, it's so depressing. So I would really hope, especially by the time we are old, that there are more affordable and humane and like Megan was saying, it's like there are places where you can go and learn and live your best life and thrive. And sometimes like the things I have seen, especially on TV in the last couple of weeks, have been like where you go to survive, you know?
They cost so much money. The place I worked was designated a nonprofit, and it was a continuing care retirement community. So you could buy in at 65, and be locked in at that price. And then once you needed 24-hour care, you were at that price. And this was in Illinois. And so the teachers' pension was so strong in Illinois that we had lots of teachers there were wealthy people that lived here, but there were middle class people. But as I like even say that, I'm like, there's not going to be pensions for us. Like that's going to go away. And so then what happens to those middle class people? They're not going to be able to be in these nicer places. So there's going to be a need for. There's always going to be high-end versions of everything, but there seems to be very few. You can be here, you will have a nice life, and it's not going to feel like an institution. Those options seem to be dwindling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's something that I think about a lot and that I don't think a lot of people want to even consider, again, because it's sort of unpleasant. But you know, there are people now who are older Gen Xers or very young boomers who are starting to get elderly themselves, and they're taking care of elderly parents. And they're understanding now that like the way that nursing homes have look back periods. So like, let's say you have a elderly mom and she's, you know, or elderly grandma who's 85 years old living on her own, one day falls down and breaks her hip and needs to go to a nursing home to recover. And, you know, that recovery could actually happen, or it could just be that now she needs help to live. So she's living in her house. And as soon as she goes to the nursing home, in order to try to avoid having the nursing home count that as part of her assets, like she transfers her house to you. No, there's a look back period where a nursing home can be like, no, you got rid of that asset within this period of time that still counts as your asset. So you don't qualify for any aid. You don't qualify for Medicare. And there's so many ways that I feel like I'm millennial centric because I'm a millennial, but I don't think this just applies to millennials. There are so many ways that generations that came after the boomers have gotten hosed. And I think that the expectations around cost of elder care is one thing, a total lack of infrastructure for places that you would actually want to put your elderly relative. Like, I don't think I don't think that people make the decision lightly to just like put their relative in care. Like most people try their hardest, you know, to do what they can. And it just becomes not something that they can do anymore. But I think that there's no infrastructure. Like there's no, where's the Golden Girls situations? Like where's the, where's like the chance for like, I mean, I think I read in Europe, I don't remember what country it is. I bet, Alyssa, you remember what this was. There was a story about how in Europe, you can get an elderly roommate, or like old people can move in and young people would get like subsidized rent to like live in a place with older people. Yeah, with older people. And like, it just feels like separating the community or the society we live in into young single people socializing, families totally separate, and then old people totally separate, robs every group of what we could offer each other, you know? And I think a lot of our generation, I'm sure Bernie Sanders has thoughts about this, and I bet Elizabeth Warren has a plan, but our generation is really running headfirst toward just some disastrous situations when it comes to elder care. Let's transition to a up note to end this conversation on. What's the greatest piece of advice, wisdom, or knowledge that you got from an older person?
I think it was when my Oma said, "Who do you think you are?" Like that there is just nothing. There is no one better than you. There is no one worse than you. That like everybody has their gifts. And I think that, I mean, it's like very hokey, but I think that that's very true. And she also told me the only person I have to impress is myself, even though she always had running commentary. But I do think that is a nice thing to think, that the person you have to impress most is yourself.
That's a good lesson. Megan, how about you?
All of my close friends at the retirement community, they would always, and I worked there when I was like 25, so I was much younger than I am now, and they would always stress, like, just have fun. Like, just have as much fun as you, don't even worry about X, don't worry about Y, just have so much fun, because you're going to be in one of these places someday and you're going to look back and you're going to want, like, they were just like, have the drink, wear this, go there, like, just do everything. And my nanny would always say, like, show a little skin. Okay. Like, I would have a sweater on. She'd be like, take that sweater off. Like, come on, get your goods out there. And I always thought that was so funny. And I think she was saying, like, show it while you got it, because she had like nice, beautiful long legs until the day she died. And she would post up at the nurse's station showing them off. Like, she truly would. And so, yeah, just have fun in the moment. And this year's been hard to do that, but I do think about them and feel true freedom that I am able to at least go about the world with a mask on and with fear, but I'm able to do that. And there's a lot of people that are not.
Mm-hmm. And Megan, you mentioned that you reach out to like old people and connect with the elderly, or are there like resources that other people who want to connect with old people in their communities can turn to?
Yeah, so there's this amazing organization called Glamour Gals, and it used to be young women that would go visit in actual retirement communities and do hair and nails. And because of the pandemic, they've had to pivot, but they're doing Zooms with them, making artwork. So that is what they're in all 50 states. And so that's an organization that I've done some work with. And then the one in East Hollywood was just sort of through one of the food banks, and they set up an incredible database to find out who needed food in the community that was not able to go out and get it themselves. So your local Y is great. A lot of times we would have people call the retirement community and they'd be like, we want to volunteer. And it's like, it is difficult. You do need to like go through a training, and there's a lot of paperwork. It's not so easy as to just show up. So I was a hospice volunteer. You can reach out to them directly, any hospice in your community, and they will train you. And they always need people that can just go and sit with people in a time for their families to be able to go out and do things.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is awesome advice. And we'll put links to some of this stuff in show notes. Megan, I'll get that info from you so that we can let our listeners know if they want to connect like that. I want to say real quick, the best lesson I think I learned from elderly people was along the lines of what you said, Megan. I had a great grandpa who I never got to meet, but he used to say, you can't beat fun. Like that was his sort of catchphrase, and it sort of doesn't make sense, but it's also kind of true. You can't beat fun. So that's the note we'll end our conversation on the elderly on. I'm sure this is a topic that'll come up again. And Megan, I would love to have you back when we talk about it again. Happy birthday, Megan. Happy birthday, Alyssa. Let's take a quick break. And when we come back, I feel petty. Hysteria is brought to you by Function of Beauty. Friends don't let friends live with anything less than amazing hair. So think of me as your friend who wants you to be happy, and try Function of Beauty. Function of Beauty is the world leader in customizable beauty, offering precise formulations for your hair's specific needs. Here's how to get started. First, take a quick but thorough quiz and tell them a little about your hair type and your hair goals, such as lengthen, volumize, and oil control. And because your hair changes with the season, you can change your hair goals before every shipment. Next, choose your color and fragrance, or go fragrance and dye free. Then Function's team determines the perfect blend of ingredients, bottles your formula, and delivers it right to you. Every ingredient Function of Beauty uses is vegan and cruelty-free, and they never use sulfates or parabens. You can also go completely silicone-free. There are over 54 trillion possible formulations, and Function of Beauty has over 50,000 real 5-star reviews. And Function of Beauty offers completely personalized formulas for body and skincare as well, so you can customize your beauty routine from hair to toe. Never buy off the shelf just to be disappointed ever again. Go to functionofbeauty.com/hysteria to take the quiz and save 20% on your first order. That applies to their full range of customized hair, skin, and body products. Go to functionofbeauty.com/hysteria and let them know we sent you and get 20% off your order. functionofbeauty.com/hysteria. Hysteria is brought to you by Helix Sleep. Helix Sleep has a quiz that takes just 2 minutes to complete that matches your body type and sleep preferences to the perfect mattress for you. Why would you buy a mattress made for someone else? With Helix, you're getting a mattress that you know will be perfect for the way you sleep. Everyone's unique, and Helix knows that, so they have several different mattress models to choose from. They have soft, medium, and firm mattresses great for cooling you down if you sleep hot, and even a Helix Plus mattress for plus-size sleepers. We took the Helix quiz, and we were each matched with a specific mattress. Josh and I took the sleep quiz, and we were matched with the Midnight Luxe mattress because I wanted something that felt not too soft and not too firm, and I sleep on my side, so it's perfect. The mattress that Josh and I were paired with is great for both of us, and it also fits our 50-pound dog without discomfort. And our 8-pound cat doesn't really have any effect on the mattress at all. She just sleeps on my pillow where my head normally goes, which is kind of rude of her, but it's not the mattress's fault. It's been awesome getting unboxing videos from so many of you who also found the Helix mattress of your dreams. So if you're looking for a mattress, you take the quiz, you order the mattress that you're matched to, and the mattress goes right to your door, shipped for free. You don't ever need to go to a mattress store again. Helix is awesome, but you don't need to take my word for it. Helix was awarded the #1 best overall mattress pick of 2020 by GQ and Wired magazine. Just go to helixsleep.com/hysteria, take their 2-minute sleep quiz, and they'll match you to a customized mattress that will give you the best sleep of your life. They have a 10-year warranty, and you get to try it out for 100 nights risk-free. They'll even come and pick it up for you if you don't love it, but you will. Helix is offering up to $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners at helixsleep.com/hysteria. Hysteria is brought to you by Bev. Bev is a female-first canned wine brand that was founded to change not only the way a product is consumed, but the way an industry and culture have operated for generations. In an industry that's almost exclusively masculine, Bev is breaking norms and creating something from the female perspective that is approachable, fun, and consumer-centric. They have 5 varieties: Rosé, Sauv Blanc, Pinot Gris, and Pinot Noir, as well as limited edition extra fizzy sparkling white wine. I gotta say, the extra fizzy sparkling white wine is better than any canned sparkling wine I've ever had. It's really tasty. I hate a sweet wine, and it is really nice and dry. It's got great taste, and I love the extra fizz. Their wines are dry, crisp, and a little fizzy, super refreshing and delicious. They have 0 sugar and only 3 carbs and 100 calories per serving. It's perfect for New Year goals like cutting back on sugar or drinking. Bev makes it easy to have a glass of wine and not overindulge. The cans may look cute and tiny, but each can is a glass and a half of wine, perfect for when you don't want to open a bottle of wine just for yourself. Hey, if this was Facebook, I would tag it and say, I'm in this picture and I don't like it. A 24-pack is equal to 8 bottles of wine. Their 4-packs are great for gifting, hosting, and social distance hangs. Bev ships straight to your door, and shipping is always free. We've worked out an exclusive deal for Hysteria podcast listeners. Receive 20% off your first purchase, plus free shipping on all orders. I suggest trying their best-selling Ladies' Night Variety Pack so you can check out all of their delicious varietals. Go to drinkbev.com/hysteria or use code hysteria at checkout to claim this deal. That's drinkbev.com/hysteria. Okay, we're back. We are about to get to the part of the show where we take really strong stances on things that don't matter. But before we get there, a little bit of housekeeping. Ooh, Alyssa. It's Alyssa-related housekeeping.
Who, me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, you. Over on the Crooked YouTube channel, you can see Alyssa Mastromonaco and Jon Favreau. And you two are talking on your series, Let's Break It Down. Can you tell us a little bit about this episode?
Well, Erin, Jon and I break down State of the Union addresses. What goes into writing one? Why do we sometimes call it an address to the joint session? Why is it a State of the Union? And Fabs has some pretty hilarious tales of SOTU's past.
Nice. That sounds awesome. I love that series, by the way. It's just like getting to hang out with you even longer every week.
Oh,
So
thank you.
it's very fun. You can check it out at youtube.com/crookedmedia. We also have a show we're really excited about next week. Like, we're really excited about every show, but next week
we've been talking about doing this for a long time.
We've been talking about doing this for a long time. And I think this particular iteration came when we were off mic one time on an episode, and we started talking about having a bad experience at the OBGYN.
Yep.
And that was not part of the show. We ended up going on for like 15 minutes, and I think our sound engineer was like, can you guys please stop talking about vaginas for a second. So we're going to do a show about women's experiences interacting with the medical community and some of the frustrations that can arise from that. And we would love to hear from you if you're a listener who has experienced if you've had a bad experience with the medical community, basically. If you're comfortable sharing, you can share with us what happened. We will check with you before we mention it on the show. We'll make sure that everything you share with us, you're comfortable having us talk about. But, women's pain is not taken seriously. I've heard a lot of stories about women at the OBGYN who've had a bad experience. And I just think it's something that we should talk about more, because we're not going to fix it if we don't talk about it. So if you have a story that you're comfortable sharing with us, you can email us at hysteria@crooked.com. Just so you know, the only people that check that are me, Alyssa, and Caroline. And we won't share anything that you shared with us outside of that circle. So hysteria@crooked.com if you have something that you think could be germane to the show's topic next week. Okay. The house has been kept. Now let us get on to what we feel petty about this week. I'll start. I will Wonder Woman through this landmine field with my wrists up. Look, I'm not going to name names because I'm classy. Not that classy, though, as you'll see from what I'm about to say. I think that if a person made the world worse, if they spent their life spreading hate and racism and just ugliness, I don't think that it is bad to be happy when they die. I don't think it is bad to, think to yourself, you know what? Good. I'm glad they're not alive anymore. I think it wouldn't be great to tell that to a member of that person's family, maybe somebody who cared about that person. But I think, among your groups of friends, have you guys ever seen The Muppet Christmas Carol?
Yes,
okay.
Of course.
The
Beautiful.
part, the part where, it's also in the book, A Christmas Carol, but I like to reference specifically the Muppets one. But there's a scene in that where Scrooge is seeing a future where he is dead, and there are people gossiping about what a jerk he was. Fine. Scrooge was a jerk. Those people that are gossiping about Scrooge being a jerk are not themselves jerks. They're just telling the truth. So yeah, I don't think that if a person lived a life of ugliness and pain and made the world shitty, then if they're dead, I'm not really sad about that. I'm actually kind of happy. So that's what I feel petty about today.
I was going to say, if you're not going to heed the ghost of Christmas future, then what is the ghost of Christmas future even for?
Exactly. You can, if you ignore the ghost of Christmas future, look, if you live your life as a total fucking asshole, when you die, people are going to be like, good,
What an asshole.
Yeah, that guy was if your brand as you're alive is like, I'm an asshole. People don't like me. I'm an asshole. Then when you die, people are going to continue to talk about you as an asshole. Like, I don't think it's that. Look, it's fine. All right. Alyssa, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I don't know if mine is petty or if I'm just mad. But the other night, Joe Biden did a town hall live on television, and he very expressly and pointedly made a point about vaccinations, where he said, that they had gotten hundreds of millions of vaccine doses, and by the end of July, we would have the doses, right? And so what was being extrapolated from that was like, we'll all be vaccinated by the end of July. And he was very clear to say we would have the doses, people would still have to get the vaccinations, and then said, as you mentioned earlier, Erin, that that hopefully by Christmas we'll be back to normal. And God as my witness, every single fucking clip on Twitter, on the morning news, on so many different broadcasts only said, Joe Biden says we will be vaccinated by July. And it's so unfair because he was very clear that that's not what he was saying. And it's just setting people up for false hope. We are so tired of our masks and of being separated. And it's like, the one thing that Biden and the whole administration is doing now is just telling the truth, even if it hurts. And so I was just really dismayed. I DM'd a lot of people this morning when I woke up about their broadcasts and just being like, that's so disingenuous. Like, that's not what he said. And in some cases, it was like a teaser, but know that people just listen to the teaser and move on. It's like reading a headline. It's why you can't have clickbait headlines. But anyway, that was it. I was just really mad about it because I really felt like he made the point of saying it. He knew he was going to take heat, right? Like, no, we'll have the vaccines by then, but you're going to have to wait to get, people will be getting vaccinated. But I just thought it was really fucked up and unfair.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I gotta say, I wanted to throw my phone across the room when you told me that about Christmas. I was like, oh.
And what did we say? We were like, God, the truth, like we want the truth. It's like we can be disappointed, but we want the truth. And so I felt like you and I really took a moment to process the information last night. And then people this morning were like, everyone will be fine by July. And it's like, no, we won't. Stop the false hope.
The thing that's going to happen is the people who have been living their lives as though everything has been fine this whole time are just going to continue to live their lives as though everything is fine. Meanwhile, we are going to be fucked through Christmas, making a sacrifice in order to enable these pieces of shit to just continue to live however they want to live. And it's just, I'm tired of it. I think I have earned the right to push at least one person into a dunk tank after this. Like, I'm so like, I'm sick of it, but you're right, Alyssa. It's good to have the truth, and misleading headlines are bad. Ugh. All right. Megan, you want to bring us home?
Yeah, okay. Oh boy. So a few years ago, my husband and I got very into American Idol. It's when it made the switch from Fox to ABC, it felt very like they just produce it, and I cry every single episode. Like they just know how to tug on my heartstrings. And so this Sunday was the premiere on Valentine's Day. We were like so excited. And then the very last competitor that they showed was Claudia Conway. And her mother, Kellyanne, was not there, but they showed her a lot of different times, and and that's sort of what the backlash has been, is like, why is this bitch getting to like celebrate her daughter when we know that's not the truth, and she's separated children from their parents, and all the things that we don't like this woman for. But I would like to say Claudia got a ticket to Hollywood, and she is not a good singer. I think they just passed her on for the show of it, because there were girls that were her same age that were better singers that did not go on. One of them had a Vietnam vet dad who stormed out. So Claudia's not a good singer, and I don't think we should continue to tell her that she is. I know she really likes it, and that is good. And I if people are like, she's 16, why are you making fun of her? Everyone on the show is 16, and they are telling them they're bad. So like, I'm allowed to. I have ears too. And she sang an Adele song, and it's like, bitch, okay, you are lost. You are lost in your mind if you think sing Jessica Simpson, Jessica Simpson's too good for her. Like, it just, everything about it, I was like, oh no, and I don't know if I can watch the show anymore.
I feel it. It's like you were duped. They invaded your place of entertainment with this person who also, it's like, I got real caught up in this because they premiered it they did the trailer during Bachelor like 2 weeks ago. And I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
And even though it was all taped in November before the revelatory TikToks that she
Right.
posted, it's still like, take your family out of my space. It's too much.
Yes.
We all have our own problems. I don't want yours.
No, and they
Right.
did like a package of like Kellyanne hugging Trump. It's like this is not what I came to American Idol for. I want dads that seem like they want to fuck their daughters, Like that is what I'm here for, is family relationships that are too close, not friends with Trump.
I mean, didn't we learn our lesson from
Sean Spicer.
Trump?
Spicer.
like Donald Trump, the original reality star turned
Yeah.
politician, like he would not be the I don't know, pain in our ass, like historic pain in our ass, if he hadn't been on The Apprentice. And Bristol Palin on Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah.
I had to stop
It's-
following her on Instagram because it was too sad. Like we take these like B-level B-level political figures who are like tangentially related to somebody who is tangentially related to power,
Yeah.
and elevate them through this like meat grinder of like virality, reality TV, where they don't really have and then we spit them out on the other side, and they look like Mar-a-Lago ghouls, like with these
Yeah.
too much stuff in their face and their lip. They look like Lara Trump by the time they're done with it, And
Yeah.
it's like,
I worry for Claudia in a way that any adult would, seeing the situation she's in. And I don't think her being on TV is going to make her life better. I think it's going to make it worse.
No. Yeah, I completely agree with you. And like I feel like I don't think you were being too mean or anything like that. Being a bad singer is just you telling the truth about your opinion about her. But like, I don't think that giving Kellyanne Conway any more access to fame is good for America.
No.
At all. This, she needs to go to Shame Island. The Shame Island where
Shame Island for her.
she cannot hang out anymore. She doesn't get to come back and be decent. Like she doesn't get to eat food anymore without, worrying somebody did something to it in the kitchen. Like she's
No, and this felt like the first of what's going to be many redemption tours for a lot of people that do not deserve redemption tours.
No, absolutely not. I do not. I reject that. And also I do, like you said, I feel bad for Claudia Conway, and it's like such a complicated situation that I almost like didn't want to say anything about it, just because it's like you don't ultimately know what's going on in a
it's not our
family.
business,
But it's like it's not our business, but is it our business? Because we're witnessing something that looks like it's bad, and like
And it's on social media.
Yeah,
Posted
and it's
by the family members. I mean, it's
exactly, and it's like it either this is really happening and it's horrible and it's just as bad as it looks, and that's fucking awful. Or something is being manipulated so it's not as bad as it looks, and that's also fucking awful. And there's no way that this ends well.
it's a lose-lose.
Yeah, it's a lose.
so at a minimum, keep it off American Idol.
Exactly.
Right. Let me enjoy my singing.
like Dateline at most.
Agree. This
And that's
screams
only after
Dateline.
we've kind of worked out whatever problems are going on in that family. Okay, Megan, that was a good petty. Alyssa, great. I feel petty. Thanks to both of you for coming by today. Thanks to Representative Gwen Moore for answering some of our questions. And thanks to you, the listeners. There will be more Hysteria for you next week.
I am from another planet. This nation fought Janet. But these girls gotta fan it. Y2K email and scan it. Don't take no for an answer.
Hysteria is a Crooked Media production. Caroline Rustin is our producer. Our executive producer is me, Erin Ryan. Alyssa Mastromonaco is our co-producer, and Brian Semmel is our associate producer. Kyle Seglin is our sound engineer, and our editor is Sarah Gibalaska and the folks at Chapter 4. Our digital team is Nar Melkonian and Matt DeGroot. Thank you to Juliet Beckstrand for production support every week. If you like Hysteria, I want to tell you about a new show called Chicano Squad, which is hosted by comedian and activist Cristela Alonso. 40 years ago, Houston's Latino community was plagued by discrimination, police violence, and a growing number of unsolved murders. With tension between police and the community at their peak, 5 young officers with little training and few resources were assigned to the first all-Latino homicide squad to solve the city's most vicious crimes. Chicano Squad tells the story of these men, their divided loyalties, and a city on the brink.